To our final speaker of the day, which is lovely to be able to introduce Ingrid, who's coming in virtually. So Ingrid is actually the Head of Communications and Corporate Affairs at Jetstar Airways, with almost 20 years' experience developing and implementing corporate affairs and communication strategies for complex organisations which enhance and protect their reputation. She's a former award-winning journalist and presenter with Australia's national broadcaster. She's reported on and provided live coverage of major crisis situations and world events, including September 11, the 2004 Boxing Day tsunami, and numerous natural disasters across the Asia-Pacific region. For the last 15 years, Ingrid has led multi-country corporate affairs teams and advised senior executives in Australia's largest and most well-known companies and NFPs on reputation management and crisis readiness. Welcome, Ingrid.
Thank you, and hello, everyone, virtually. I appreciate you've had a pretty jam-packed couple of days, and here we are, almost at the finish line. So I very much appreciate you sticking around and spending some time with me in listening to what we have been going through and sharing some of our learnings and some of our experiences here at Jetstar. Really happy to take questions. I won't keep this too long because I know you've had a full few days, and hopefully all of the video and the technology works. I'm sorry I couldn't be there with you in person, but it's great to join virtually. So look, today I just wanted to share with you how we at Jetstar, and we're part of the Qantas group, how we have been essentially switching up our comms to make sure that we are heroing our people and our customers in everything that we do, and how we've done that through a particularly difficult time through the COVID period. So many organisations and people have, I know, had a pretty intense journey, and communications has been at the heart of supporting our people and our businesses and our leaders through that. In aviation, we've had to essentially ground all of our airlines for a couple of years, and now we're having the tough time waking them up and the operational challenges that are coming with that. So that's really the focus of this presentation, and I do look forward to taking your questions as well. But perhaps if we go to the first slide, I just wanted to give you some context about who is the Jetstar Group. So I trust that that's up there now. I'm sure you've all seen the orange tail, and hopefully you've bought a $19 fare to go and see your grandma, or perhaps go and have a fabulous weekend hiking or surfing, or book clubs with your girlfriends, because low fares has enabled that for you. We are an airline that is based here in Australia. Our head office, Jetstar Airways, is based in Melbourne, and we're part of the Qantas group. But we're also made up of other airlines around the world that have the Jetstar brand. So you can see there on the left, Jetstar Asia. It's our business and our airline, our Jetstar brand, that is based in Singapore. And then we also have one of the largest low-cost carrier domestic brands in Japan, so Jetstar Japan. So with these three airlines across different parts of the world and connected with the Qantas group, that's what makes up the Jetstar Group. And the reason I tell you that is because we have quite a different set of audiences internally, culturally, as well as when it comes to the specific work or role types that we have. Around about 8,000 of us across almost every continent. So we have people based in the places that we fly to, more than 60 destinations, actually more than 80 destinations domestically in Australia, and then dozens and dozens around the world as well when you combine us all together. So we've got to communicate to all those people and our customers and the media in those locations. And we also, within our workforce, have a variety of roles. So we've got meteorologists, we've got people who plan the network, we have people who sit in our operations centre who decide, hopefully, which flights are never delayed, whether there's fog or resourcing issues. We have people who are our cabin crews naturally, our pilots. We have our corporate team members working in marketing. We have our logistics people. We have our freight people. We have our engineers on the tools. And so with regards to communications, we have to be clever, because emails, we know they don't cut it generally anyway, but they really don't with such a dispersed workforce, not only in terms of geographic location, but in terms of not sitting in front of their computer screens all day. So we get clever. And we also respect that, probably a little bit different to Qantas, we are a younger demographic. We're 18 years of age as far as the main Jetstar Airways airline goes. And as such, we have probably a younger demographic to Qantas, who have many, many cabin crew and pilots who've been there for decades. We're a much younger group. So we also need to take that into consideration when we're planning our communications and the channels that our people want and like to engage with. Just a little bit of context, the last couple of years, I mentioned before, it's been a pretty tough time. We basically had to ground all of our airlines. There was a stage when we were only flying literally in the single-digit percentage of flying. And interestingly, because of the way COVID hit Jetstar Asia, so our Singapore-based airline, and you can imagine in Asia too, given where the virus originated out of Asia, they were the first airline in our business that we had to ground. I didn't even know the term stand down or furlough, but at the end of the day, you can see in the column on the left-hand side, 2/3 of our people were stood down across the business, across Jetstar and Qantas. So 2/3 of people were immediately not working. And now, as we're recruiting, and I'm sure you've all read the headlines across Qantas and Jetstar about some of the challenges which relate to those we're seeing around the world in aviation, we are ramping up. The demand is like never before. We cannot put enough planes in the sky. We cannot recruit enough people to meet the demand. But we are challenged because we've got a workforce that is pretty tired, to be honest, those who've worked through the COVID experience. We've got 1/3 who are brand new, and then we've got 1/3 that we're recruiting. So I just wanted to paint the picture in terms of our journey over the last couple of years and the nature of the audiences internally that we are communicating to, because it's really guided the way in which we have rolled out our comms and evolved our comms as well. The other thing that is probably important contextually, and this is a demonstration of how we also communicate things like strategy, are the key guiding principles through which we plan and execute our comms. And so on the left-hand side is basically our strategy for the Jetstar Group. And we have, young cabin crew team members, probably pretty much straight out of high school. We have our engineers who are very visual, our pilots who are very technical. And so a visual demonstration of our strategy that is akin and aligned to, I guess, the sort of business that we are. So hence the suitcase and a suitcase strategy is how we present essentially the key priorities for the business. And so I'm sharing that with you just for 2 reasons. One, it's the guiding comms lens through which we decide what to prioritise when we're communicating, and each of those travel stickers are our priority pillars. And also the visual way in which it is presented. And whenever we say the suitcase strategy, everyone knows what it is. So that is an example of a way in which we use, the tools, understanding our audience and contextualising some big set pieces that otherwise might just, be on an intranet somewhere. The other lens through which we plan and decide our comms are our values, and they are on the right-hand side. And these are critical. These values drive who we are, where our characteristics, and the things that we want to champion and promote. And so when we are coming up with stories, when we are sharing our internal comms notes and heroing our people, we use these 2, overarching lenses as our guiding principles to help us prioritise. And I've just, been listening in, you probably, like me, the business comes to you and says, we need more comms, we need more comms, we need more comms. We look at it through the lens of both of these pieces. So when it comes to our guiding principles, and I'm going to share with you some examples shortly, we've sat down as a team and worked out what are the key things that we want to ensure we have when we are preparing and considering the way in which we're communicating and the content within which we're communicating. So we use the strategy and the values as the lens, and then what are the guiding principles? Number one for us is not to necessarily roll out our CEO. Yes, we do, but judiciously. Qantas Group and Alan Joyce, very, very visible, and that's absolutely appropriate. But for us at Jetstar, we hero our people and we hero our customers to tell the stories that bring our strategy and our values to life. That is twofold. One, it allows us to really speak to our families, our younger travellers, if you think about the demographic that travels Jetstar, in a very relatable way. And also our people love seeing themselves in the stories, whether they're internally or externally. They absolutely love seeing themselves and their friends. So for us, that is a real engagement tool. We always want to dial up the Jetstar spark. We're a different brand to Qantas. We're a younger, more youthful brand. We can have a bit more fun. We can be a bit more playful. And we bring that through our internal comms as well as our external comms. It's critical that we speak like humans, that we don't use corporate speak in our emails or in our other comms, and we're transparent. We're also our critical focus is being where our people and our customers are and the channels they use. And this was a big change when I came across moving, because I was at Qantas beforehand and moving to Jetstar, and again, remember that younger demographic. People and our cabin crew, our pilots, our engineers, they are not looking at their emails. But yes, they're looking at their Instagram, at their TikTok. They're looking at their WhatsApps. They're looking at Facebook pages and things like that. So how can we, and LinkedIn, how do we use those channels to actually engage internally as well and use those as our key platforms of communication as opposed to your standard emails, which we do use those, but judiciously. We've talked about the strategic priority and values checklist. And then the other thing, we're a small team, we're a low-cost carrier. We don't have the dollars to spend, and nor should we, because we are all about a low-cost DNA, and that is so that we can ensure that we have $19 fares to the Sunshine Coast or $24 fares on Australia Day. We must live those principles internally, and therefore, in terms of a budget, it's basically a no budget or a very, very low budget. And that means that we create the content, the story once, and we cut it up and we divide it across all the different channels in multiple ways. And that's where we get best bang for our buck. And I learned that when I was at Qantas, actually. I was, part of my role there, again in communications, was doing a rebrand for the Qantas magazine with our fabulous partners. And our managing editor was fantastic in just guiding me with this idea, create once and then use across many channels. And if that's something I can encourage you to try, then if you're not already doing it, it's just a great way to get the most bang for your buck out of the hard work that you're doing in your teams. So putting all of that into action, heroing our people, using the channels that our people use, remembering the values, and that is can do, that is passionately orange, that is one team. I wanted to share with you an example of the strategy in action. And let's hope this works.
After 11 years, welcome back to Harvey Bay.
So that's an example where we were launching a new route to Hervey Bay. How do we do this? How do we bring it to life? Yes, media release. Yes, a media doorstop at the airport. Let's push that aside. We found the story of Brad, who grew up in Hervey Bay. It was just after the borders started to come down, and we asked him whether he would join us in telling us his story. And how wonderful was it that his parents always used to write in the sand and sign write his welcome home. But this was the first time he was doing it after COVID. And this was also the first time that he was a cabin crew manager, and they wrote that in the sand for him. And so we filmed that ourselves. We shared it internally, and we gave it, we put it all out on our socials. Create once, use many times, and we gave it to media, both locally and then your news.coms. So it really, for me, epitomises that using our people, passionately orange, can do, low cost. Check out that sign. He made that sign, which made it even more authentic, and just really showing how we can create something ourselves and use it on many different fronts. And gee, we got such an incredible reception from that. Oh, okay. Now this is going to be interesting to see how I can move this on. I might need some help from our wonderful AV people. Let's see what happens. No. If our AV people are there, I'm going to need your help moving the slide on, if that's okay.
We're here, Ingrid. Sorry, we're here, so just bear with us a second.
Okay, thank you.
You've lost control?
Well, if I play it, the video just plays again.
Oh, no, so try to click. So instead of play, just click on your page down on your...
Here we go.
Great, thanks, bye.
Thank you. That was very well done. So I just want to share with you some other examples of that strategy that I talked about in action. So Weekly Wrap. Weekly Wrap is an internal newsletter that we send on a Friday. And remember, we have about 8,000 people across our business. Almost everyone clicks on it. They wait for it to come. And it's a wrap of the week. I'm sure so many businesses have this. Over the last 6 months, we're so pleased because the content that we've been creating is really hitting the mark and our viewership has doubled. During COVID, our CEO, Gareth Evans, you can see him down there, how we were trying to work out when we were all locked down and so many of our team members in Melbourne being, you know, the hardest hit for so long, how do we make sure that he continues to engage? And we moved from pre-COVID, Gareth would do, you know, his standard video like you probably ordinarily would see, a CEO video. And we taught him how to do selfie videos. And we taught him how to not only do selfie videos with his daughter or someone holding it, but then for him to actually hold it and do selfie videos. So during the lockdown, he did 76 selfie videos from different locations. And it was just really human. They weren't overly scripted. They were only about 2 minutes long, and we used them not only in the Weekly Wrap, we put them in a whole heap of different channels that our people use. So I'm really pleased at the way Weekly Wrap has evolved. We launched our Jetstar Newsroom Instagram, and this was inspired by one of the overseas or international airlines, where we essentially go behind the scenes of Jetstar, and it has just boomed. So behind the scenes of an airline, we're very fortunate in that we've got lots of amazing things and big planes and people to celebrate, and it's always fascinating. Our top posts average around about 10% engagement, when the normal brand average is half of that. Our followers have just gone through the roof. We're continually adding and feeding it. And again, heroing our people and our customers, and Molly, our dog, who we've actually brought in as an engagement tool. She's actually the dog of one of my team members who looks after the social channels, and she's a some kind of Labradoodle that has, after doing some training, the ability to be a service dog. So Molly goes out to the airport once every 2 weeks or so, and she's, a calming, fun, gentle influence for our customers, but even more so for our people. So Molly features heavily both internally and externally, to the point that she's got her own colouring in page that the kids do when they're on board. We don't have a workplace. We haven't rolled that out, but what we have done is created closed Facebook groups for our different work groups. It works really well in the cabin crew sort of cohort, because that's, I guess, a channel that they tend to use. And again, they love posting. We use it to post videos of our leaders, again, very lo-fi, selfie sort of style. So that's been a really good way to have two-way communication and engagement. LinkedIn has been a very big tool for us with regards to recruitment, and we don't use it with leader messages in any way, but we use it with messages from our people. So people who are doing jobs that they love, telling the world about why they love working for Jetstar and the sort of work that they get up to. And it is absolutely driven recruitment, which has been critical. So we don't do thought pieces on LinkedIn. Again, it's all about our people. And then TikTok. I'm sure many of you have TikTok that you've launched or you've started. Our team members absolutely love it. So it's another example where our external channels are just as important internally. And we're gathering our followers. And yeah, this video below reached close to 1 million views. And I can tell you that our people absolutely loved it. I think I've got some examples of TikTok. Let's hope this works, coming up next. So this is when we were a novel way to recruit graduates into our graduate program. What channel do they use? How do we attract them? What is the best way to do that? And also when we were recruiting team members into our cabin crew cohort, not only was it great externally, internally, but as a recruitment tool.
I'm so live right now.
They absolutely loved doing that. And here's another one. So look, they're just some examples of how we use the channels that our people and our customers use, looking through the lens of our strategy, our suitcase strategy, looking through the lens of our values and how we bring communications, information to life, both internally and externally, with basically no budget. And I guess it needs, as we heard before, leader buy-in. And I'm so fortunate, and our team is so fortunate that our leaders, our executive team, are absolutely behind us all the way. We've got a new aircraft, which is really exciting for us, landing on Sunday in Melbourne, a brand new aircraft of its type. And last night we had our CEO do live cross to our engineer who's working through the entry into service program and basically picking up the keys to the aircraft, live on the tarmac, aircraft in the background, talking about that process. We've cut it up, put it into a whole lot of different channels, and we'll play it in our town hall tomorrow, as well as through all of our other channels. But it's just an example of our executives getting behind this more casual, very personable, less written comms way of engaging. And it's been critical during the COVID lockdowns, and it's critical as we, and I'm sure you've read the news, are coming out of COVID and facing some challenges like all industries are facing with COVID illness, flu, impacting our resourcing when demand is just so high, which is great to see for our services. So I'll leave it there and really happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. We might go to the audience first to see if there's a question. Great presentation though. So any hot off the press questions from the floor? Oh yeah, great.
Sorry, can you hear me? Is the
Testing.
Hello. That's better. Hi, Ingrid, and thank you so much for the presentation and for the energy that you put into that. I can see you're passionate about it. Just wondering how much media plays in your communications strategy. You talked about doing internal and external, so I'm assuming you cover both. And do you also do media? I think you mentioned it a couple of times, but it didn't seem to have much of a profile.
Absolutely. So my role covers internal, external, social, government relations, and this comes back to create once and share across multiple channels. So the Hervey Bay is a classic example. We decided that instead of getting, local Win or Seven up in Hervey Bay to cover it, we decided to create that content ourselves. We could have more control over it, and then we shared it with the TV, the local TV stations. We shared it with the local newspapers, the radios, and then we also shared it internally. So for us, and we've got a couple of stories coming up this week where we'll be in our simulator centre with a young traveller who is very fearful of flying, and one of our pilots is taking him through the sim and putting him in basically the pilot cockpit and going through the simulator exercise. And again, we're going to film that ourselves, and then we share that with media. We target, it might be the project, it might be Sunrise, and they've got their, Feel Good Friday, or it might be another outlet that we know would be keen on that. And then we also share it internally as well. So it's a holistic view, and we use what goes internally, we use externally, and vice versa.
Thanks. And there was a question on this table. Was there still a question? Yeah, excellent.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. Just around engaging with your workforce that aren't sitting at their computers. I have a similar workforce working in health, so doctors and nurses aren't sitting in front of their computers every day. So keen to understand if there's other things that aren't digital that you're using on a regular basis as well to engage with them.
It's a great question. So for us, our pilots, for example, they're flying, and our cabin crew too, in particular, and our engineers. What has worked really well, especially, and I know this has all been upbeat and positive stuff, but during EBA negotiations, when we've really needed to clear up some facts, put our claims across. Of course, unions are very, very smart in the way that they communicate and get cut through. But we found that with our pilots, as an example, podcasting really worked. So we would have one of our leaders essentially chairing a podcast and asking our people to send in questions beforehand and essentially answer those questions. We cut it up and then we send it out to that group. And we find that our pilots, and they're allowed to do this, it's all in keeping with safety regulations, listen to it when they're flying. They listen to it when they're travelling to the airport. And that has been a really good tool for our pilots. Videos are the small, short videos are also really critical, and those Facebook pages too, for our cabin crew in particular, and our airport staff. So cabin crew and airport staff, probably similar demographic, and they use those social channels really well. Short, sharp snippets are the easiest way that we can engage with them.
Excellent. I have a question, unless anyone else has a question on the floor. So when I was preparing, I sort of Googled some of your organisations to figure out, do I know what I'm talking about? But Ingrid, I did read that your CEO about a month ago has notified, everyone that he's stepping down and finishing up at the end of December. Does that mean that you will have to not change your values and what I'm not assuming that's going to be looked at, but certainly manage the internal comms in this time of uncertainty?
It's really a good point. So Gareth is so beloved across our organisation. When it comes to those values, he lives, breathes them, and not just at Jetstar, but he's been with the Qantas group, and I worked with him when I was at Qantas, so 23 years, and he's worked in many, many different roles. It was a very big piece to communicate, interestingly too, we were overseas at the time and trying to work time zones and all the rest. The thing about Gareth, which just goes to the heart of who he is his, given a 6-month lead time, and then he's hanging around next year as well. So, but we've had to think judiciously about how and when we use him since that announcement. We don't want to shy away from it, and he's very much sleeves rolled up, and he is here. There is no taking a step back in the commitment and the work that he's doing. So on Sunday, we have our NEO aircraft arrival event. Media from around the country will be there. Gareth will be there and hosting and doing media for the first time since that announcement. And we've, prepared for all the questions, especially because I'm sure you've read in the media as well that he was someone who was essentially looking at the Qantas Group CEO next step. But he has been with our people. So flew up to Singapore. He's trying to get to Japan as soon as the borders open properly in two-way. We've got our town hall tomorrow. He's walked the floor multiple times. He's been out in our operations to provide reassurance, to thank people during this crazily difficult time. And I apologise for anyone who's lost their bags or have been delayed. It is tough, especially getting there to this summit too. But yeah, it has been an interesting way in which we're just navigating how we use Gareth, and also making sure that he has the opportunity to thank people for the kind words and messages that he has received, and acknowledge that sadness, but respect for his decision.